Hello everyone, this is Jack. Hope you enjoy this fantastic episode with Jono, Tooke of Cry Club. Just a little bit of a heads up, Fenn's microphone cut out about 10 minutes in and then it comes back about 5 minutes later, so thanks so much for your patience with that one, and yeah, music rules. Hello everyone and welcome to Music Rules episode number, I'm not sure, because we're doing something extra special today.
I think it's episode lucky number 13.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Nice.
We talked about the 1975. Now we're talking about Taylor Swift's favorite number, 13.
But things are extra special today for two reasons. One, we're in the same room together, which means we can talk in the same time.
Oh.
And reason number two is because we have a little guest in today. And I want to introduce...
he sure is little.
He's a tiny little man. Tiny little fella. And I'm going to introduce him as a friend of mine, musical fellow from my hometown, ex-bandmate, produced a few Basil's Kite albums here and there. Hey, maybe he even produced the first one ever as his first ever production credit. Yeah. It is none other than Jonathan Gonzalez Tooke. Maybe the Gonzalez.
I thought his middle name was Fulliver.
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 That's it.
Fulliver Tooke.
Jonathan Fulliver Tooke.
Yeah.
And we're here talking all things Cry Club.
That's right.
Yes. And you know what? It's so special because this is our first ever episode where we've been given an album before it's released to the unwashed masses. Ooh. And it has been such a pleasure to wrap our ears around it. Although I think Fenn and I, when we chose our songs, we did choose the singles.
We did choose the songs that are already publicly available.
But hey, you know what? That's a credit to you guys because obviously you know which songs are the sickest, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it's the I feel like the business of attention grabbing.
Yeah,
often forces you to distill your ideas into something interesting.
But I suppose that's good news. I mean, I didn't. Yeah, I did know there were singles because the album art changed and there was different pictures.
Yeah.
But still, when I was listening, just unconsciously, they stuck out. Anyway. Yep. We're going to go...
the other songs aren't extremely sick as well.
Oh, they are extremely
great save,
sick.
Ben. Great save.
And you know what? Maybe later on, Jono might even pick one of those non-single songs to talk about.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
Who knows? So we're going to begin with one of my tracks that I picked. And this is little...
Before we do...
Oh, sorry.
But before...
We should say the name of the album, which is
yes. Okay.
Spite Will Save Me. And
yes.
maybe should we talk a little bit about it just generally before we dive
into
you're
right. Sorry. All my juju's out of whack.
No, it's okay.
No.
I think I really, really enjoyed listening to it this week since you sent the link. It's such a I love the title, and then the overall feeling of the album is angry and fun at the same time. And it's so satisfying and fun to listen to. I was riding my bike on the way home to record this podcast, and I was riding extra fast, and I did a 30-minute bike ride in 22 minutes because I was just I was so G'd up.
I love that.
Yeah.
Honestly, when we were working on some of the demos for the record, I was having the experience of testing a bunch of them while running.
Yes.
And I kept having I was listening to the song while running and being oh my God, is the tempo right or wrong? Or it feels so slow. It just feels so slow. And it's just maybe don't exercise at the same time you're trying to determine whether or not the tempo is right.
Yeah. Or maybe vary your exercises. Maybe do super slow, low RPM weightlifting with your cardio. You know, you want to
split it up
a little bit. Yeah, get those tempos nice and varied.
Yeah.
Could this song go off in Anytime Fitness? What's a place in Melbourne? Anytime Fitness Brunswick.
Hey, Brunswick.
Brunswick East or Brunswick West? That's the question.
Well, I don't know the difference, and I'm not going to pretend to understand.
Yeah, we're famously anti-Melbourne on this show.
Yeah, sorry.
But luckily you're from Wollongong.
Sorry to all the sorry to the listener who is they obviously know our allegiances, and this is a bit of a betrayal. But Jono gets a pass because he is from the Gong. He is one of us.
Gong heavy, gong strong.
Yeah, he's a temporarily embarrassed Wollongong person.
I love another thing I love about the album. There's like a real range of moods. So like obviously there's like the high energy, like beautifully spiteful songs, but then there's also like these more like mellow kind of introspective moments, and I love the balance of all those things.
Thank you.
Happening together, and then sometimes you have kind of a bit of both at the same time.
Yeah, I think a huge thing for us is like when we were in the middle of writing for this, we just wrote like an ungodly amount of songs, and
Right.
I think us landing on these 10s was a matter, like, it's an interesting thing that happens when you're putting stuff together where there's the intention that is like curation of
Yeah.
picking the songs,
Yeah.
because we could have picked a second record that would have been exclusively sugary pop songs with like no distortion in them.
Wow.
We would have enough material to pick that out, but I think the curation that comes to go like, oh, what if these 10 songs next to each other kind of puts us in an interesting spot where it's like you get to like the storytelling that purely is selecting what songs end up on the record is a huge one.
And in what order?
Oh my God, the order thing, it kills me.
How did you go ordering this stuff?
Honestly, I am so happy to accept this. I'm so bad at it. I like, don't get me to pick a single. Don't get me to order a record.
I feel
Yeah.
the same. I'm terrible at track listing anything.
So we've got someone on our team, Fletcher, who is phenomenal at sequencing. And Heather and I, we could sit down and spend like an entire day going like, oh, here's the perfect track list. And Fletcher goes, here's the one I've sent. Have a listen to that. And we're like, yes, correct.
Yeah,
You're
it's
correct.
just-
We
but-
just spent a whole day umming and ahhing about something that
Yeah.
you just have this natural
Yeah.
instinct for.
Yeah.
This is a bit of a random deep dive. You know who my guy is for that?
Yeah.
Who I still use?
Yeah.
Thorn Goodison.
Ah.
Mercy.
What a legend.
Ex Thomas Covenant. Yeah. He's got a knack for it like nothing else.
Some people just have it.
Yeah.
Some people just have. I think part of it is my experience of being like, when you're so close to the music,
Yeah.
you reach a point where there are things that remove your ability to be objective, and it's
Yeah,
really
totally.
important to understand as an artist when to get assistance and get help on that front, because it's so easy to be thinking to yourself, this song should happen here because of this thing only I know about.
Yeah.
Right,
And
true.
maybe it's some preconceived thing that you've had for a while, like this song would be a killer closer, yada yada.
Totally. Or just like, I really, maybe you can be pedantic about like making sure the keys of the songs that are sequenced are related in some kind of way, or like there's jumps
So
that
true.
make sense, like you're putting a key change in a song
Yeah.
and then putting a key change in a record, and you can go down that road, but then sometimes it's like, wow, I just completely over intellectualize that for
Yeah.
no reason.
100%.
And then every time you listen to a single, it has a random jump to the fifth of the next song in the end of it, like it might just, as a standalone thing, it might be a bit weirder. I don't know.
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
Yeah,
You just
that is kind of
perfectly-
funny.
You have all these interludes just linking all the keys
Yeah.
together. That could be sick.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, we talked at heaps of
yeah.
albums that done that. Like,
Yeah,
like
the Andy Shelf album did
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about like the fact that it was this curation process as well, because like it's always interesting for me like how artists approach like creating stuff. Like there are people who create like tons of stuff, and then it's a matter of whittling it down. It sounds like you and Heather are like those sorts of people.
Yeah.
And then there are people who like maybe they only make like 10 songs in like 3 years, and then those are the ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Wh-
really
which is maybe
probably-
more like you.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
with the podcast, I've been forced to
Yeah, I
not
mean-
be like that.
Hey, it's probably good for you. I think
I'm
about it.
less like that now, but it used to be way more. Yeah,
Mm.
just like very rare.
I think about it all the time with Phoebe Bridgers.
Mm-hmm.
She was saying that for her last record, Punisher, she was like, it's 10 songs long because I had 10 songs.
Yeah,
And I completely understand that. And it is a great record. So I'm not going to be like you arted wrong. But I think it's
I will say that. I think she did it wrong. No.
but just that I think there's almost like a safety net either side of it, where it's like
Yeah.
you, especially if we were in lockdown, like
Yeah.
the only thing we could do was write songs.
So is it fair to say this is a lockdown record?
Yes,
You know what's cool? It doesn't sound like a lockdown record.
which was very
Thank God.
deliberate, very deliberate, by the way.
And this is because
Yeah.
you two were living together? How does it not sound like a...
So
I mean, like the typical lockdown record is very introspective and kind of forlorn and being
Okay.
like whatever,
Oh,
like
okay.
maybe like a solo like acoustic guitar and like yearning for
Oh.
connection or something.
Okay, so that's what you guys
That's
meant
a
by
genre.
that.
Yeah, like
okay.
the wave of like a year like in 2021 and 2022 where it's like everyone's putting out very sad records, and that when Lord put out Solar Power and everyone's like, I don't get it. It's like everyone's like, it's kind of weird to hear the perspective of someone who spent all of lockdown hanging out in the sun in New Zealand having a very beautiful
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But for us, we had very deliberately, and we talked kind of a lot about making sure we didn't want it to be like Cry Club's lockdown album,
Totally.
because
Success.
like a huge one was just like that's going to be such a quick way of like trapping it in a moment in time. Or I think about so many records I love where they are defined by their moment in time, but they are not trapped by it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's maybe what some people were kind of maybe analyzing too hard or thinking too literally about this stuff, is because it's going to be imbued in the record regardless of how
Yeah.
like how much you spell it out.
Totally.
Like the
Yeah.
fact that, we all went through that is
But I think a huge thing that the lockdown experience gave the record, which I am still super grateful for, was the as much opportunity to fail as we did. Like I think we wouldn't have written a song or felt comfortable putting out a song like Somehow if we didn't get the chance to experiment and get to a place where we're like, yeah, let's do an 80s rock song today. Why the hell not?
Yeah, totally.
As opposed to the kind of like, well, we're in the middle of touring, writing what we can when we can.
Yeah.
Every time we get to write, it's kind of precious time, so we can't really fuck up right now. It's like, I don't have that attitude, but it's really easy for that pressure to emerge. So being in a place where you go like, there is no time pressure. You can do whatever you want. Experiment as far and as wide as you want.
yeah.
And then you can pick up the pieces later.
Yeah.
Which is the curation of putting together the songs of the record, where we were able to go as far left and right as we could at the time, and we've continued to push that range, but being able to go like, let's just go down the path, see what happens.
Yeah.
And then you can iterate into the ground with structure, and I don't know, I kind of still long for the opportunity to do that again. I kind of thrived under that environment.
Like freezing time for a second.
Oh god, I want to have that like Dragon Ball Z training chamber.
Or the planet with the heavy gravity.
There's that one, but there's also the one where when they're preparing to fight Cell, they go into the like, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a chamber where time moves incredibly slowly in there, so you can get super jacked and train, and then it's been like 5 minutes.
Yeah. I want the remote from Click.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That would be the best. Yeah.
So I can spend more time with my boys.
But Fenn, at the end of it all, you'll realize
Half speed.
at the end of it, you'll realize that you were skipping out on all the best parts
Yeah,
of life.
that's true.
And then
that
you'll
is
be
the message.
surprisingly confronted by how emotional you feel about Adam Sandler.
Yeah. Oh my god.
It's just an interesting one where it's like, it's so like being in a place where everything sucked so much that it kind of forced us into a place of like fantasy, which I think is a huge part of this record, where it's like, it's not like, so much of what defined the first album for us was about honesty and about where we were in a particular moment and how we were feeling in that particular moment. Whereas this record is so based on the experience of like, wouldn't it be cool if, and being like, what if we were the scary band? What if we were what if we were Van Halen? What if we were X, Y, and Z?
Totally, yeah. It's cool that like you are like you kind of get to play all these different characters, and even in the artwork it's telling these different kinds of stories.
Yeah. Let me look at that sucker.
Yeah.
Oh
It
yes.
really, give me a second. Yeah, you really did a good job with like giving each song its own personality and its own story and everything.
We've just been gate crashed by a little cat.
Yeah.
It's kind of we got to acknowledge it because it's kind of cute.
Yeah, I love Elvis.
Yeah, little Elvis.
Little Elvis.
Hey, let's not talk about that show.
Yeah.
I back on the title. I really like. Have you heard the Deerhoof song "I Will Spite Survive"?
No, I don't think I have. I'm a huge Deerhoof fan, but I know
I
know specific records a lot, but not all of their catalog.
I think it's of Mountain Moves, which
Mm.
was I want to say it's a like kind of Trump album because I think that's when it came out and it was
totally.
made in response to that. So kind of like,
Yeah.
I guess a bit of a similarity in time periods. But yeah, it's this idea of spitefully surviving against all
Totally.
odds is a fantastic kind of motivator when it comes to life, living, writing music
Yeah, I remember
against
someone
all odds.
talking about like where you find motivation in life, and there was someone who was talking about like it's really like you want to feel noble about where you get your motivation. Like I want to be motivated because of good stuff.
Yeah,
Is like the thing that you want to be able to say all the time. But then there's some like this person called it like the dark why, like why something happened is like sometimes you did have a negative emotion that was your driving source, and it's okay to accept that.
Yeah,
Totally.
it's a very, very human thing. And I think
Yeah.
we're past kind of being stoic about feelings
Totally.
and just talk openly and bluntly. And speaking of bluntly, more. I want more.
Hey, we got there.
The first song that I have selected out of the Cry Club album, Spite Will Save Me. Sorry, I had the other album title in my head.
That was like watching a magic trick happen.
Thank you so much. You just got mind freaked.
Yeah.
So we're gonna listen to this song. We'll have a little chat.
You know what I
Enjoy.
feel when I'm eating spicy food? Sprite will save me.
Oh, nice.
I've got a great meme to show you later.
We'll put the meme in the show notes.
Yep.
All right, let's do it. 3, 2, 1. I
Music.
want more. Of music.
Did you think I hadn't heard how you're twisting all my words that weren't heard? Are you watching from the wings? Did you hate the way I sing that weren't heard? Get a little closer, speak a little slower. Can you really tell me that you think it's easy? Can you keep a secret? Want us to believe it? Make a promise, keep it. Don't understand.
That was I Want More, the final track off the new Cry Club album. And while that song was playing, Jono was just casually dropping so many excellent things that are happening in this song. And we're just,
You're like, shut up.
we're just
Save
trying
it.
to trying to keep track of it
Shut
all.
up, save it.
Yeah. So one of the big things that kind of stood out to me is, I guess the in the chorus, it begins on this massive like flat 2 chord, kind of like it's a little bit Queens of the Stone Age-y, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a huge thing for us with this was like trying to balance simple and complex has always been kind of the goal.
Yeah.
And then a song like this where it's just kind of using a lot of voice leading to get away with murder.
100%.
Yeah.
Where it's
You
like,
killed it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like a huge one is like going like, what is the key of this song is a
Yeah.
little bit questionable. It's C.
It's C.
Yeah.
I would say key center of C.
Key
Yeah.
center of C. Everything else around that a little bit up for grabs.
Yeah.
So I think that was a kind of moment where it's going like setting up a lot of the song where it's like, okay, you've got that like a C and a G, like a G is like a constant note, and then landing at a chorus where it's like, all right, the chorus wants to change. What if we move that down to an F?
Yeah, so it begins with this like this power chordy, just like is it just a simple dyad like C and G?
Yeah, pretty much all of the song is just dyad.
Right, because it has that. Yeah, it goes and
Explain to the listeners what a dyad is.
Well, it's such a good question, and I will explain it right as I collect my thoughts, and they are collected. A dyad is different to a triad. So a triad, famously, 3 notes: C, E, G. A dyad, C, E.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 2
It's
notes.
a 2-note chord.
Yeah, just two note chord.
Yeah,
I
but it's just
couldn't.
a word that people don't really say very much.
I love dyads.
It's a great word, though.
I'm all about dyads.
Yeah.
I reckon 3 notes. Shut up.
I think it's a really useful thing in this kind of environment where there is like a harmonic like vagueness to the song. And I think using like your brain wants to fill in what those extra things are quite frequently. So I think using dyads is kind of an interesting one where it's like if you're only handing over part of the information, the audience kind of has to have follow up with the remainder.
Totally.
Is that
implied harmony?
Yeah. Is that riff really dyads? Like the whole thing, that da na na na, because it moves to the flat 6, like the A flat thing, C down to A flat, briefly to A,
Yeah.
and then F. Is that all just like G at the top and then the bass note?
It's not G consistently
Okay.
through it, but
Oh, yeah,
those
'cause it
those
goes through it.
first 3-ish chords
Yeah.
do have the G on the top. But I don't think there's any moment in the song where I'm playing more than 2 notes.
Really?
Huh.
Not even in the chorus, because that sounds big.
That I think that's just kind of still dyads for me. Like I think there's a lot of layers, like there's keyboard layers and all that sort of stuff, which I
Yeah.
kind of mentioned.
Yeah.
They're kind of blended in there
Yeah.
to kind of add the size, but it's kind of I'm rocking a 2-note life.
Yeah,
Whoa.
nice.
That's crazy. So is it like with the D flat chord, it's like a D flat and an A flat and that's it? After the bit where it's like, well,
Better luck next time, and then it goes to a D flat and an F.
D flat and an F. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
So moving from that C power chord
Yeah.
to the major third, a semitone. above.
It's like a cool little movement because yeah, it's like they
It's
both
kind of moving
move-
inwards.
Yeah, what's the word for that again?
Oh yeah.
They're
Con-
moving in contrary motion.
contrary
Yeah, thank you.
That's it. Yeah,
But also like
I should have remembered.
like if we're going all harmonic series for a second,
Let's
like
go.
that. Yeah,
the implied like the 5th is probably pretty strong if you're using distortion maybe as well, like
Totally.
nice.
above the D flat and the F, so it kind of builds that major 7 kind of sounding chord.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because I was fully convinced it was just like a major 7
Yeah,
because I was playing along with it on piano. But yeah, maybe it's that other thing, just like you just fill in the gaps yourself.
yeah.
Totally.
You're totally
Interesting.
right. It does do. Yeah, I didn't think of that. But of course, that would bring heaps of the beef in it. It's just the fact that there's heaps of dirt on there, and you're not just hearing 2 notes. You're hearing the whole kind of harmonic series or the whole kind of.
Yeah.
A huge one with guitar recording in this environment. This is kind of like a production thing, but like a big one is like layering guitars in kind of amounts of distortion. Like a classic one that you can hear in a lot of 2000s and 90s recordings is like they go to the chorus and the distortion turns on, and then suddenly the crunchy guitar that was in there in the verse, it's gone. And those textures being swapped out means that quite often you can land at a chorus and things empty out.
Mm.
Whereas a more modern production style would have, okay, that tone that you've got in the verse, keep playing it through the chorus and we'll put another distorted layer over the top. So you have, it's still the same guitar part. It's a double, but in it being a different amount of distortion and a different tone, it takes up a wider amount of space.
So does this track get thicker in that same way, or is it kind of the more earlier production you?
I would say this one kind of has that more modern approach in that there's like, in that chorus you're hearing cleaner, the same kind of cleaner layers you're hearing maybe in the second verse, has a bit more chunk to it, but then there's like super distorted ones, and then there's not as distorted ones, kind of all in there.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting to me is like, obviously you're like a proficient producer and like you work with other people, but then like you produce other people's albums, e.g. Basil's Kite.
Yeah.
But then like you get people to help you like mix and produce your own stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe like just, talk a bit about that.
I think it's that like
the perspective thing.
The perspective thing. A huge one shows up to be like, if I went into every room assuming that I was the person who had the most knowledge about anything music, whether it was production or composition, suddenly I would be cutting off any potential of growth. And I would be, that assumption would push me into a space where I would cease to learn anything. So if I can go into things going like, oh, someone has a different skill set than me, there's places where I have more than them, and then they have places when they have more than me. And sometimes one of the things that someone can have is just they have a different vibe, where it's like, and that alone is like something we experienced doing this record with Alex. It was a huge amount of time in terms of composition with us, and then working with Alex was like, just record it.
Yeah.
Just go in, record it. And we did a couple of days of pre-pro just to do some tidying, and then the rest of it was just like, it was like 5 or 6 days in the studio, and then that was it.
That's quick.
You know?
Yeah.
I feel like maybe as well as having a different vibe, Alex kind of just correctly identified that you guys are probably one of the most prepared bands that could possibly come through.
Yeah, I think a big one we've kind of gotten from a lot of people we've worked with is the idea of like, the band is best when they trust themselves. And I think that was kind of like an experience that we had with Alex, where there was like him just going like, no, this rules, just like let it rule. And I think that's something I'm really grateful for, having the experience working with him.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like great advice.
Yeah.
Speaking of loving people, should we move on to the next track?
Hey, yeah, sure.
I sort of just assume that we love this person, Alex. I love them for producing this album. I think it's a super cool thing. This track is called Somehow, and it is
Somehow, brackets, you
still get to me.
I love a title,
Brackets.
title.
This song had to have that, honestly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. This is my choice. It's the one that I guess it stood out to me when I was first listening to the album. Yeah, let's just take a listen to it, and then we can really dig in.
Always hear your voice at night. Stupid little alibis. God, no matter how I try, somehow you still get to me. I will always take the bait. Make a couple more mistakes. Just too little, just too late. Somehow you
Wow.
Wow.
That was somehow open bracket. You still get to me. Close bracket. What a song. What a tune. Yeah, it was such a. It's really like reasonably different to every other song on the album, but it's so cool that like just halfway through, there's just this like perfect pop song that sounds like what's it called? Jesse's Girl. Like
Oh, totally.
yes.
like just
Yeah.
that like real like classic good songwriting like I don't like I love that song Jesse's Girl. Not a
great
diss
song.
on
Yeah,
any
yeah.
way. Like,
Phenomenal
such
song.
a sick song. But yeah, and it's just like glossy and bright, and it like emulates that feeling of like euphorically feeling in love or something. Like it has all this such a beautiful energy to it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a huge one for us with this is like I always think about those records where it's like Disintegration or something like that, where it's like
Yeah.
you got this dark record that's all angry, and then you got like the one song that's like selling the record,
Yeah.
and it's like I think that's like actually kind of like for people in that era of the music industry, that was like a commercial reality,
Totally.
but
yeah.
that imparted something kind of weird and unique to albums of that time.
Yeah.
Where there's like the edgy rock band is like doing super weird stuff, and then there's just this one pop song, and I really love that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
one
so
that,
true.
One that comes to mind is you guys know More Than Words by Extreme?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
More Than Words.
I love that song.
Yeah.
Cause all you had to sing
Make
brown
it
butter do.
right. Yeah. I think Adam Sandler sings that in the movie. Anyway,
Yeah.
enough about the Sandman.
Enough about the Sandman.
He did come up earlier though. Yeah, it's
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it is funny positioning in that particular context, but also like I would love to hear a Cry Club album of just these sorts of tunes. Like, far out.
we wrote that there's like somehow has like a cousin.
Yeah.
Well, we've got like another one, but it's just like it's an interesting one because like I feel like we could turn around and do that and go like, what if like classic rock songwriting? But
Yeah.
it's so hard to like doing whatever's like the most creatively honest thing, and sometimes
True.
it's like you got to be in the mood to
That's true.
do something like that.
And maybe it
Yeah.
would lose its special sheen if it was in every,
Yeah.
if it was all the time thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
if Blur wrote 100 other songs that were like song 2, you know? Like
Yeah.
that would not be good.
And that's actually song 2 is a great example to bring up, right? Because that song was written as a joke.
Yeah.
And the vocals that are in that are like scratch vocals
Yeah.
with tons of bleed in them and all this sort of stuff where it's like there's a sense of like, haha, what if about that song.
Right,
Where they're
right.
like, what if we wrote like one of those dumb American grunge songs?
Yeah, yeah.
And then kind of, for me, somehow came out of Eddie Van Halen had just died.
Yeah.
And he was in the news, and I did a big re-listen of Van Halen to kind of re-listen to what he did because he gets so much talked about so often in the world of guitar, but then like you listen to what he does and you go like, damn, there's a reason why people talk about Eddie Van
Yeah.
Halen this much.
Yeah.
It is really good.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally. One thing I was curious about is yours and Heather's songwriting relationship, because obviously it's a collaborative band, but yeah, I'm interested like sort of what form that collaboration takes specifically.
I think
know?
for us, there's like this kind of classic. We've kind of gotten into a place where it's like the music we make is like ostensibly pop rock music that kind of explores genre. To sum it up as succinctly as possible, and we kind of work in the same way that pop producers do.
Yeah.
Where it's like we'll put together. Quite often I'll set up an instrumental, and then Heather and I will work on a song which will then inform the instrumental and kind of push it along. But I'm pretty sure this song came about of like I found like a guitar patch setting on some software, and I was like, check it out, it's that 80s rock sound, and Heather was like, oh yeah, like this, and I was like, yeah, like that. What if we just kept going?
That's the funniest thing. Just like
so good.
two millennials, like ironically creating the pop hit of the summer. Just
Yeah.
being like, yeah, and what if I like sang like a really uplifting chorus, like this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and like, what if I like just did like this like mad guitar solo at the end? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
This is totally like
There's that thing where it's like sometimes like artists land on some of their most defining work by going like, what
Yeah,
if?
Yeah. It's like happy accident almost.
I think
Yeah.
it forces you out of that, like, I have to be special, like I have to be so considerate with my
Right.
creativity. Like I have to, everything I write has to be important and special and clever. And then if you're going like, what if haha funny gets you into a place where it opens up a different part of creativity.
Yeah, it does. For sure it does. And like, it's funny, I think as, musicians, we get stuck into tropes, even just based on what we're used to playing on our instrument. Like, I think you were saying earlier that it was really tricky for you to learn the guitar parts because it's like not what you're used to playing.
Yeah, like writing the guitar part. I just remember playing that verse riff endlessly, trying to find the variation that worked. And this is where it's so helpful to have someone like Heather, where I'm able to go like, what do you reckon? And they're like, do that one. And it's like the curation thing again, where it's like I can offer Heather all this stuff musically, and then they're so phenomenal at picking what's right.
Yeah.
But despite them not having necessarily like the music theory background or anything, they
Right.
just go like, that feels correct. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's the perspective I fucking need. Also, sorry for the swearing.
That's okay. Yeah. We'll bleep it out. Actually, we will. This is PG, man. Yeah, they have like good taste,
Well,
Like,
I think that's a
having
huge...
taste is like so
Yeah,
important.
and it's so far
having,
above
like-
any other like.
or having
Yeah.
like a shared, you have like a shared creative vision, and like
Yeah.
I think you both know like what works for the band, and that's really super important.
Well, I think a huge part of that as well is like each of us being in a position where we can push each other into different spaces, where we can go like, what is this kind of song? And then it's like the other person being like, oh God, what do I do about that? And then having to react to that exploration
Totally, yeah.
is a really interesting thing, where it's like essentially the two of us continuing to push each other into
Yeah.
places that we normally wouldn't go. Like for me, a huge one that was like defining for me with Cry Club was like, I am never allowed to do a guitar solo because being the sole guitar player in a band means that if I do a guitar solo, suddenly the song's just going to empty out when we're performing live.
I was going to bring this up actually. Aside from the bridge in "The Sun Is Smiling" by Basil's Kite, is this the first ever Jono Tooke recorded guitar solo?
It might be.
It might be.
What about and is it called Enter the
Yeah,
Jaguar?
was there a Jag solo?
Oh, there might have been.
while ago.
yeah,
Honestly, I can't fully remember.
yeah.
I feel like Enter the Jag, I was mostly playing... I may have done one solo, but it mostly was based around rhythm playing for me in that band.
Yeah.
I think it's that thing where I don't know what your experiences were with it, but for me, I had the experience growing up of being like super obsessed with like 80s hardcore music and all of this sort of stuff,
Yeah.
which was very anti-guitar solo, unless it was that kind of like Greg Ginn atonal thing, which I love.
Yeah, there's a reason. I feel like maybe you and I as guitarists have like if playing guitar was an RPG game, we've just like put all of our points into a very specific thing, and we've neglected all of that beautiful lyrical soloing that so many that we should probably be able to do.
Yeah, it would be. I think it's one of those
you
things.
can do it.
Yeah, it's one of
Well,
those.
yeah, you just got to write it, I guess.
But
Right.
An
Actually-
interesting one that shows up with this in terms of like that kind of playing is you might notice no bends.
Oh, there
I
you
don't
go.
bend.
No bending.
No bending
Why,
allowed.
why no bendy?
Because the guitar that I played on the longest amount of time in Cry Club actually had a thing with the tension and the angle of the strings and all that sort of stuff that if I bent, I would absolutely snap a string. So all of my guitar playing is based off the idea of like bending is not allowed.
Yeah,
Bending is a sin.
Yeah. In the music video, or like I can't remember if it made the music video, but I'm in the like instructional video that I made for it. It had like a thing about like bending not allowed, sliding is your friend.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
What I was going to say before, actually no, forget this. I was going to say, did you write this solo? But you obviously probably didn't go into a studio and improvise a solo.
No, I am. There are some people who live that life, and I have nothing but respect for them. But considering it was one of those things I felt quite almost self-conscious about,
Yeah.
it was. I actually here's some process. I don't have any musical instruments in my home.
What?
I refuse to bring them into the house.
Damn.
Oh my god.
All of my instruments are in my studio.
Okay.
They live at the studio.
I'm
so
like, oh yeah, you have a studio.
yeah. Yeah. No, they're
Like,
just on the
I just have
street.
my house, dog.
And the vibe is the music happens there.
Mm-hmm.
Home happens at home.
Interesting.
So
That's kind of nice.
so that way, when I go home, I'm literally incapable of thinking about music too much because I can't do anything with it or my
Interesting.
equipment. Like I couldn't even open Pro Tools at home. If
Oh,
someone asked
really?
me to do some adjustments on a song that we've worked on together, if
That's-
I'm at
that's
home,
nice.
I actually can't do it.
Yeah, that's kind of good. Like, yeah, separating the work from the life.
Yeah.
But this song and this solo was the first and only time I've taken my guitar home
Wow.
because I was like, I really want to write something that I'm happy with. It's got to be the right amount of, like the arc of a guitar solo. I really do care about because I want it to be so melodic that someone could sing it the whole time, which means, okay, introduce
Which
some
I did while I was listening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. Like introduce a concept, bit of repetition,
Develop.
throw in some flash.
Totally. You had like a little motive for the beginning. Do 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 do. Yeah, super singable.
But it's nice as well just to chop out for a bit and go.
You
You
kind of
know,
have to
like-
do that sometimes. Like
Yeah.
I
Oh yeah, the right balance of like chops and taste.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's like I also the only fancy thing I can do is 16th note triplets, so I gotta spend it somewhere.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, it was a moment where like, there's a video of Tim Henson from Polyphia where he's talking about writing riffs, and he's like, you do the cool parts that people sing along to, and then you got to throw some flex in to like
You got to.
just to for you to be interested and for an audience.
It's
Like,
exciting.
that's it. I think there is a button that it happens in people's brain when you get a little bit of flex. If
Yeah.
something's flexed the whole time, your brain switches off. If you get just a little bit,
Yeah.
then your brain just goes like, what? And it's
Yeah.
like a attention grabbing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Where
Very
it's like
true.
this is like actually like this song has what is actually from a time perspective a quite long guitar solo for a song coming out in the year that it did.
Yeah.
So part of my attention was going to how do I justify its length?
Yeah. How do you compress all of the greatness into a very yeah. Actually, no, opposite to what I said.
Yes.
How do you kind
Reverse
of
that.
Yeah, reverse that. How do you pepper it around a 16 bar, 15 bar solo?
Yeah, because all the solos of the time were at least a verse length.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I need to hit that length. How do I create something melodically that justifies that length rather than
Yeah.
going like, I'm just going to play all the cool ideas I have that could fit in that time.
Yeah.
Whereas I tried to, like, I just spent so much time going like, just the specifics of it killed me.
Yeah.
I want to talk about I love the choice to have the title of the song is like associated with this minor change in the verse, like
Yes.
change to a minor chord. I love the kind of like it has this really wistful quality, and it's like overarchingly in a major key, the verse especially, and then it's just like that just little minor change when Heather sings "Somehow You Still Get to Me." It's just so like satisfying, and it really draws your attention to like. It's a really good title as well.
Thank you.
Like, yeah, it's so cool.
That was another moment where it's like the balance of simple and complex, where it's like, well, it's like sus2 to major third.
Yeah.
And then over that chord is like a C.
C sharp minor 9 or something.
Yeah, it's a C sharp minor 9, but it's got the second and the third a semitone
Yeah.
apart.
Okay, yeah.
So there's like Clash City happening in that.
Yeah.
Where it's like that classic one where putting dissonance in a pop song, you have to do it so deliberately.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it just comes across as an accident. Whereas if you go like Somehow You Still Get to Me is kind of like a not mournful, but it's just like
Yeah,
there's a
it's-
complexity to that
Yeah.
line.
There's an one other thing I love about the song is like the lyrics. They have this really like it's almost trying to explain this ambiguous feeling, and the combination of that with this like totally joyous song, like joyous music, it has such an interesting effect because the lyrics aren't exactly 100% joyous. It's
No.
like it's a really cool balance between those two things.
And there's times in other songs where we have to do the balance the other way. Like so much of I think our creative process is balancing the needs and the wants of the music and the vocals, and going like, oh, if the vocals need, like, say with the verses, Heather having such an expressive vocal line there and such an explorative one meant that I was like, I'm gonna go simple. I have to go like I spend most of the song in the verses like hitting just an open A string, palm muted, just so Heather has the space to do the great vocal line that they've got.
If you could zero in on Heather's vocals for a little bit, I love their inflection, and I love their
they're the best.
enunciation. It's like a really it's like one of those sorts of voices where I go, you know what, the Australian accent is kind of sick. Like it's kind of like super nice and endearing to listen to, and just,
Oh yeah, definitely. I was
Heather's
thinking that.
very specific about the Australian accent. They're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to sound not Australian.
yeah.
And because they have a complete control of knowing when to do an American A. And like all these things about the phonetics, it comes from like the musical theater world and then
Yeah,
the singing training world, where
Right.
you're so aware of the phonetics of your words.
Yeah.
And you're going to put different phonetics into different parts of your mouth and where you're going to sing them on different places. They're
Wow.
like so technically capable on that front. And there's that thing that happens when you're so technically capable at a thing you do, where you can become more expressive at it. And I think that's the thing where I just feel continually blessed that I'm just like,
Yeah.
I get to roll out this little goblin who
Yeah.
can sing like that. I'm like, I feel like I've just like won the lottery.
Yeah.
I was gonna actually bring that up too. So like they trained in musical theater. I think Stephen Sondheim said this about Bernadette Peters, is that like there are musical theater performers who like act, and there are musical theater performers who sing. And then Bernadette Peters, she's constantly acting and singing at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, and that's really hard to do, to find that balance, because like you'll hear like recordings of musical theater songs and people will be like speaking every like 4 words in a row and not singing the notes, you know?
Totally.
Well, I think Heather has a really good balance of like the acting and the singing within the song, and like giving you the emotion and the feeling of it.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
That's a huge one when we're talking about vocal phrasing and recording. A huge one is like, what's the character? And we kind of use a lot of Heather's background. There's the musical theater thing, but also training in drama and acting.
Yeah.
And a lot of that training actually shows up in the way stuff is performed in the recording studio.
Yeah.
This is where it's like, there is a very deliberate, like, each line, every time you say it, like there's a classic one that Heather's told me that I kind of repeat everywhere, is the idea of like, if you're repeating a line and saying that same sentence another time, it should mean something different because you've repeated it.
That's
So-
I feel like that's a great.
It's almost like stage direction or something.
Totally.
Like it's sort of beyond music in a way.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's very applicable to music too, because like if
Yeah.
you're playing, like I have piano students, right? If they're playing a Baroque piece, it's like 100 sequences. Like
Yeah.
they're playing the same idea over and over again. And
Yeah.
I always like, I'm telling my students, like, you have to make it sound different. Like
Yeah.
you have to make a decision about the dynamics of
Yeah.
when you're repeating something, because
You're right.
it
yeah.
needs to be different, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is that thing where it's like, there's so many people who, when they're recording, a huge part of it is the challenge that is just recording the part. And there's something really beautiful about that challenge and getting that right. And there's a great creative process in that. There is also a great creative process in someone who walks in ready to nail it to such an extent that it stops, the technical thing is not even a question. It starts going like, when you're putting takes next to each other and they all rock so hard, there's a thing where you go like, okay, you're now doing this thing. I was like, what's the character of the song? Because
It's about the nuance. Yeah.
yeah, and you pick takes because something cool happened that one take that was just like this offhand thing that happened.
Yeah.
And you're not
Yeah.
going to yourself, well, we have to go that take because it was the one that you sung it correctly. You're going like, all the takes you sung awesome. That particular one has a certain je ne sais quoi. And so let's go with that one.
Pizzazz.
A little bit of pizzazz.
I'm so glad that I had my translator.
Yeah.
I was about to ask, what the frick is Je ne peux pas?
Yeah. Don't worry, it's French for pizzazz.
Oh, thank you.
Apparently.
But I think about that all the time, where it's like the balance that is someone who has like a pretty heavy duty background in music theory and composition, and then the production side as well, and then having someone who has such a direct connection to the emotion in the songs. I think that's just like again, the
I
thing
have
that saves me with it.
one request is that just once
Yeah.
release a song where you both switch roles.
Oh, that would be.
It's
so
like
good.
all production, like every musical like composition thing, all by Heather.
Yeah.
All vocals, just you.
Yeah,
But it's so interesting. Like,
That would be cool.
that would be so
I'd be
good.
curious.
Heather on guitar.
oh yeah,
Does Heather play guitar?
a little bit.
That's good enough.
They could do "Sweet Child of Mine,"
Oh, yeah,
damn.
nice.
Okay.
but it's so interesting because like the crossover, but like we each influence. It's not like I do the music and then Heather does the vocals, and there's like a
Right,
really
right.
clear line. It's like
Well, like the thing you were
Heather
saying
being
before,
like, "Can you change that thing in the
Yeah.
song? Like, can the drums do this instead?"
Like someone acting as a sounding board and like, yeah, like having taste or making decisions is like so important.
because this is one of those things as well that I don't know if this is going to be a surprise or not. I still have yet to write a song by myself.
Whoa.
I find myself completely useless in that environment.
That is very interesting.
Well, boy, do we have a surprise for you. We're going to lock these doors and you aren't going anywhere until you've written at least
you're not
one
allowed
song
to- you're
in
not
the
allowed
style
to
of
fly
Cry
back
Club.
to Melbourne yeah, until you write one.
I got a
song by
time
yourself.
limit.
This is a hostage
Yeah.
situation because
Yeah.
unlike your house, there is instruments here.
Yeah.
You have no
Whoa.
excuse.
That's so. Yeah, that's kind of that's mind blowing.
It's like, yeah.
It's
Blew
the
my damn mind.
the collaborative process is just so much of a part of
That's
how I work
interesting. Yeah.
with within Cry Club, but also with other people I work with, is just based off the idea of like I can point. I'm like point me in a direction is like a really helpful thing for me to be able to go like if. I'm not in the position where I'm like I could produce anything. I could produce whatever. There's the things that I can do, and when someone goes like, give me something like this, it's like, okay, cool. I am now like, it's really easy to get into the creative space where you're responding to a prompt,
Yeah.
you know, and having
true.
someone who can guide that process is huge.
Can I pitch to you then? Jonathan Tooke solo album, acoustic guitar, vocals.
Yeah, there we go.
I reckon
The
that
most
would
like
be it.
confronting
Yeah.
possible recording.
just like kind of just like really gorgeous dense harmonies, which you're good at, like cool guitar voicings, and just like all hooks.
Yeah.
I reckon
Yeah.
that would be a
It
great
would, it was
first
me
album.
just being like, I'm trying to be Sean Conrad. That's what it would be.
Oh, he's got like
I-
20 years of songwriting on
Yeah.
Oh my god. No, there's somebody who definitely like writes a lot of stuff and
Oh, yeah.
curates it.
that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking like it would be interesting because like a lot of these songs they have really interesting harmonies, but then like the texture is really thick and like sometimes distorted. Like it would be interesting to hear like acoustic cover version Cry Club unplugged. Like that would be
Totally.
sick. That would be so good.
Which is, I think, on our first record we have like an acoustic song
Yeah.
but it's also quite digital as well. Like there's a balancing that song has. Like the whole point of the song is that it's like Heather's vocals are like shifting into autotune gradually.
Whoa.
And there's a dynamic to that which is really exciting and fun. But this is like a kind of an interesting one from like when you're a support band, you don't get to play those songs.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
So
Yeah,
if
that's true.
most of your experience in performing is being the support band to another band, to an audience who doesn't know who you are, you're in a position where we could do like the acoustic song and then suddenly everyone's just going to talk over it and we've lost them and we've spent part of our very precious like 30-minute set that
Yeah.
we've got completely losing everyone. So there's
So that's why you came out wearing underwear at the Mark Rebillet show, right?
yeah, we're like we've got to match the vibe.
yeah.
But like we say that acoustic song that's on the first record, we
Yeah.
don't get to play that very often. We can only do it on headlines, and we can only do it when it's like a very specific thing. So that it almost that there's like a thing that's constructed in that pushes us away from a lower dynamic, from having more experience touring.
Yeah. It's really interesting how there's so many different like technical aspects of what you're talking about and experience that like are functioning as these sort of guiding hands on your creative process.
Totally.
And it's like, it's not, I would hesitate to call it a limitation, because it's really not. It's just like this kind of, it's just by nature of your experiences, it's shaped like the output in a really interesting and cool way. And even like when you're talking before about like those 80s albums needing that like one commercial hit, it's always cool like to see like the cross section of like practicality or like whatever, like commercial concerns as it was in the 80s, and then like with creativity it always yields like really fun, good results. I think
There's like I think there's this kind of like false dichotomy of like creative and commercial, as if like they're completely separate entities. Whereas if you can acknowledge, even just kind of play into traditional commercial demands, like a big one for me is every record that we do with Crack Club, I want there to be what you could call a ballad, because back in the 70s they wouldn't put out your record unless you had a ballad. It was like part of the deal of putting out an album is a thing. You put it on 2 sides of vinyl, and somewhere in there is a ballad. That was part of the deal. So our first record, we were like, oh yeah, this is pretty much done. And then we were like, we also have this one song that
Acoustic
showed
ballad
up,
time. Yeah.
like right at the end, and I was like, perfect.
Yeah.
And then this record has the song Hocus Pocus, which is us doing the equivalent of a ballad, but at a higher dynamic. So it's more of a thing that we could potentially play live.
Yeah, there's a great
Yeah,
build in
clever.
that song. It's really satisfying.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Made me think of Hocus Pocus by Focus. You guys seen that?
No.
Okay, forget I said that. But listener, look it up. It's a sick song.
Should we move on to the next
let's
track?
move on. This is Jono's pick, a little song called Wildfire. Let's do it.
Wildfire.
Definitely keep it.
I could try to be an ocean, something greater than a drip. And if I want, I could drown you with a sip. I can try to be a hurricane, something looming overhead. And when I want, I will tear it all to shreds. So let me loose, got so much to prove. 'Cause at this point, I have nothing left to lose. Never want you to see me the same. I
Hell yes. Wildfire. Jono's pick from the Cry Club album Spite Will Save Me. I feel like it goes radio voice every time the song is finished. It's really weird.
Yeah,
A
you
radio
become radio
voice.
announcer.
What a song.
Yeah, I'm
I-
glad
I-
you picked that because that song is straight fire.
Yeah, I feel like if you did... Hey yo. I feel like if you didn't pick it, I might have. Because you know what? It's like, I was a very angsty teenager
Yes.
growing up. Still a bit of an angsty adult. But I also used to listen to a lot of a little band called Nine Inch Nails.
There we go.
And let me tell you, as a Nine Inch Nails fan, I am right at home with this track. It's got all of the same kind of trappings of a Nin song.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you pointed that out because kind of like an aspect of the record which I haven't mentioned so far is like each song is a very specific reference to a band that we grew up with.
Ah.
So it's like so many, like each of the songs has like a very deliberate nod from us to go like this music we loved as teenagers.
Oh, right.
And Nine Inch Nails, well, a huge part of the Nine Inch Nails thing is that drum beat, right? That boom.
And that tempo too, probably.
Would you believe that drum beat, like the kick and snare being so straight, was actually the thing that saved the instrumental? Because the instrumental before that was everything else around it.
Whoa.
And with the bass noise and the screeching guitar and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, God, this is just unlistenable. It's really satisfying to make, but it's just unlistenable. And then Heather was like, why did you just put a kick and snare like Nine Inch Nails? And I was like, huh? Yeah.
What a,
Put a
Would you
beat
look
on
at-
it.
Would you look at that?
Yeah, it worked.
And then it worked out great.
Yeah.
what an elegant solution.
But yeah, I was kind of like, I keep mentioning stuff while the songs are playing, and I'm like trying to save it for when the
It's
song's
alright.
finished. But one of the things that, from a compositional angle, is like the Nine Inch Nails thing is the modal mixture thing,
Yeah.
which is also like a
Polymodal chromaticism.
let's go.
Yes. Polyphonal chromaticism.
The modal mixture thing is like a very that's something I'm like, everyone's talking about like AI, about like that replacing musicians and all that sort of stuff, and I'm like, no, you know what? I'm kind of good with Cry Club because I know no one else is doing the same modal mixture stuff
Yeah.
we're doing, so I'm like, I feel confident about not being replaced in that regard.
It's a really cool thing. Like, there's no other band that's getting played on Triple J at the moment who like has these sorts of chord progressions.
No,
Like none.
and, like, I love a lot of the bands that are being played on Triple J, but there is a thing where it's like it's so tonal.
It's like a Trojan horse, kind of like you and Heather are really able to sneak these complicated ideas.
You're inside the
In.
horse.
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
it.
you're polymodal as all hell.
Yeah.
and you're being led into the wide arms of the ABC studios.
You know what
But they have no idea what's inside.
It reminds me of like, I'm not very familiar with K-pop.
Yeah.
I'll say that first. But like,
Heather and I definitely are.
I'm somewhat.
yeah, like they sometimes have these verses and they're so atonal. Like
Yeah.
they're so
Hell
like
yeah.
just completely, there's like almost no pitch, and then there's like this kind of like talk singing, and then it like transforms into this super melodic chorus.
Yeah.
I kind of felt that similar development as the song progressed. Like it starts off in like, okay, there's no key center, there's no pitch, it's all spoken, and then you realize, oh, actually, no, that screeching guitar, like it does have a pitch, and it's like the major third or whatever, and
Yeah.
then the spoken vocals, they actually are like hinting at particular notes, and like it's really specific and really cool, and then as it gets filled in more, you're like, oh wow, it was always,
It was always tonal.
it was always tonal, yeah.
And that's probably a nice like sort of skill, I guess, for music theater again, is like kind of being like having that, what's the name for that? Is Sprechstein?
There's some German
no,
word, yeah.
Yeah,
Sprechen something.
Sprechenstein?
Sprechen Sie Deutsch.
Yeah, not mean, mate.
But that balance of talk sing is like absolutely something that we like have to navigate a lot.
Yeah.
Where it's like how to talk sing in like the correct place harmonically
Yeah.
is a whole
Yeah.
road to go down.
You're pointing out to me when Heather's vocals were like meeting the major third in the song and then the minor third when those modal mixtures were happening. That was really cool, like how precise it was. And I'm glad you pointed it out while it was playing, because I may not have like exactly noticed it, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
I wonder if you pulled out Melodyne, let's just say auto tune for the listener, if you'd see like where the note was sitting, like was it all sort of like gridded to a point, because some of it sounds a little bit blue?
I'm
for
so
lack of a better
glad you
word.
brought this up, Jack. 'Cause
Yes. Was this what you were going to talk about?
This is the bit for you. This song very deliberately in the synth parts in it. There's a sequence synth that shows up for the second verse and plays throughout from there. That's not playing any of the thirds because I'm leaving the thirds open for the guitar and the vocals. The reason I'm doing that is so I can use harmonic thirds
Oh.
So
in this song. So I am in all the tuning. So we're making pop music. A reality of that is like very attention to detail and like a huge amount of attention to detail in the vocals. So we have Melodyne, which is essentially the fancy version of auto tuning where you're doing it by hand, and there's a lot of detail applied to that.
yeah,
And yes, we are deliberately aiming for the blue
right.
in those notes. Where if the harmonies that show up in the chorus, there's a third above the main melody it places, which is 14 cents flat.
Oh, that's a cool little detail. Yeah. So that's like
I remember
on
you
the
posting a
major
meme
third.
about that, and I replied to it.
So that's so cool. So I was going to say something about that, about the blue note. Oh, I forget. Maybe we should continue.
It's cool, like, to leave it open like that, like with like not having the chords filled in by other instruments. It reminds me of Ornette Coleman, like his first album, like
Hell yeah.
has like piano on it. It's like a quartet, and then like the second album, he's like, okay, no piano for this one.
Yeah.
This is just bass drums, and I'm just gonna do like whatever I feel like, and
Yeah.
it's so much cooler. Like there's so much more color that he can achieve.
I
when
just
he
remember
takes away the.
just remember what I was going to say. So speaking of Blue Note, which is the jazz record.
Yeah. Hey, there we go.
So Blue Note is something you brought up earlier, but I didn't clarify to the listener what it is. So a Blue Note is sort of like it's the note. There's a colloquial term used to refer to the note between a major and a minor third. So in that sort of like what's the lyric? The dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Is that sort of bend?
It's also like a really popular move in country music.
Yeah, boom, da, boom, da, boom, da, boom. I'm singing
And
it so
obviously
I'll
blues.
auto tune myself later.
Yeah.
Boom, da, boom, da, boom, da, boom. But yeah, obviously blues. Yeah. I guess like maybe more academically or more like in a broader world, it's kind of like it's a quarter tone. It's the space
Totally.
between it's 50 cents sharp or 50 cents flat from either end.
Yeah. And I think there's a really interesting thing that happens when you bring an understanding of going like there is on pitch and there is off pitch, and there's the things that do exist around that depending on the context. So me pointing out the synth thing, we couldn't do that same style of tuning on Somehow because that has these synths running through it, which have the temperament is so locked with those, whereas with guitars, the tuning is already left and right, which means that you actually have the flexibility to do that if you are doing guitar-focused music.
So to get real specific for one second,
Yes.
the guitar part in the chorus where it is playing the major third, is that third also 14 cents flat?
No.
No. Okay. Right. Cool.
Oh, so they're clashing?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Interesting. Yeah, because it's quiet in the mix, but you still hear it. Maybe
Yeah,
that's why.
because I'm using that. There's the F sharp that's in that, which is my open string. So just for everyone playing at home, I tune to E, A, D, F sharp, B, E. With my guitar, all Cry Club songs are in that tuning, and this chorus has that F sharp ringing out throughout all of it, and I've left it as the what would you
Equal tempered.
equal tempered third,
Yeah.
in this case, for the clash,
Right.
because at the back end of the chorus, it's got the F sharp, D, F sharp as a stack, and then it goes down to F, D, F sharp stack as the last final chord of it, like super crunchy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it was like, if I went flat on that F sharp there, there's also other parts in the song where I'm playing other things on that string that would have screwed with it. But
Yeah.
because of that clash there, I almost wanted to like steer into the skid.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
way.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that guitar line that repeats the whole time. It's very Nine Inch Nails. I assume it's guitar. It's like
Yes.
something to that.
Yeah, the
tune.
screechy like
Yeah.
feedbacky thing.
Yeah.
Is that because I guess like it sort of sounds like it's somewhere between it's playing major third, minor third, or is that
It's
something different?
It's between the third and the fourth. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Would you?
I don't know
yeah.
actually. I might be wrong.
This is an interesting one where the song, as it started for me, existed outside of compositional environments because I was really inspired by this band, Gilla Band, who are like one of my all-time favorite bands. And this song is actually a huge nod to them. And if you're a Gilla Band fan and you heard this song, you'd be like, it's like that song. And it's like, correct. And a huge aspect of what they do is there's like a sense of pitch and stuff and noise coming from instruments that they're like rhythmic devices and textural ones rather than traditional compositional devices where you put out like you're going to play like it's super non-functional music.
Right, totally.
And so the bass that's in the verse is me going like strumming a bass while muting all the strings close to the end of the nut and strumming all the strings dun dun.
Yeah.
And it's just miscellaneous low end. And then I put a synth bass in there to just go like D
Yeah.
behind it to just make it feel a little bit grounded.
Cool. Yeah. I mean,
And
sometimes when you have like a lot of like musical training, you kind of need to break yourself out of it somehow,
Totally.
to actually feel creative.
Which that guitar that's running through the whole song, that screeching one, is behind the bridge of my Jazzmaster. And just like a lot of distortion and just like finding notes that resonate with the string behind the bridge and kind of leaning into that. Like a theme that I've kind of gotten into is like sampling noises from instruments like guitars and basses. It's like something I'm super into where it's like sampling keyboards and stuff. We're so used to that sound, but hearing guitars sampled in a way that it's like it's a sample. Like it's so many people play guitar on record from the angle of like, and this is the guitar part and you're gonna play this live. Sorry for the swearing. And how good is that? Whereas like trying to go like, what if guitar is another thing on the pile of things that you're allowed to manipulate in the context of rock music? Because it happens in electronic music, it happens in a lot of other places, but in like pop and rock music, guitar is treated with kiddie hands so frequently. But to go like, nah, you're in the blender too, like I think was a huge source of inspiration for this song.
Yeah. But weirdly not in metal. At least like not in the way that most lay people I guess maybe most lay people would understand metal to be performed, whereas like on the other production end, it's very kind of clinical and very they sample guitar all the time. Like if you get one good take of that perfect like pitch bend or that perfect like gross harmonic sound, you just copy and paste it all around.
Like that end of things, absolutely. Like the production version way of sampling it. But I'm thinking of it in like the like hip hop and pop producer sense, where like I've grabbed a piece of a take and like cut and pasted it into a part.
Yeah.
So if I got the original file for Wildfire open and got that source that was that noise and pulled out what it was either side of it, there'd probably be a minute of just guitar noise, scratchy stuff.
I see.
Either side of it, and I've identified that particular chunk and cut it and paste it around into the bit that you hear now.
So this is more like transforming guitar as like an instrument into something that's kind of more like floral and decorative, kind of like less just like riff heavy and more just like here's something that exists. How can we wield it and manipulate it to serve a song?
Totally. And it's like deliberately not meant to be played.
Yeah, as opposed to like a friggin' riff, man.
Yeah, just like
just riff it out.
It's just a rock band.
Yeah.
It's like I think that was where part of the interest was like with the 9 Inch Nails thing that kind of came as that. Not necessarily that was the opening influence, but that helped contextualize all of this noise stuff that I was doing on the song, where it was like having a driving drum beat and actually kind of going like, you're allowed to go out there and go into these harmonically clashing places, provided you give people like
something to hang on to.
And giving that to the listener made this song work and contextualize all this crazy stuff in a way that it's like that constant balance that we have where we want to do like the cool, interesting, crazy thing, and we also want you to sing along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Cool. Is there any chance that we'd hear this live at a Cry Club
Oh, absolutely.
set? Yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
sweet.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Timberland or something. Like there's lots of weird ideas in his productions.
Totally.
Similar vibe.
Well, it's like producers like that where kind of looking at rock music like a pop or a hip hop producer, I think is kind of like an interesting approach compositionally, where you're less thinking about like what a band in a room would do. And that's a really interesting, valuable experience. But what happens if you're not in that environment? What happens if you're dealing with the circumstances that you're in and you're a person in a room with a computer? How do you make a rock band sound exciting when it's you and Pro Tools? You know?
Cool. All right. Well, is there any more?
I'm trying to think of other interesting things in this particular song.
There's one thing I was going to say, and this is maybe the nerdiest thing on this episode, and I'll gladly
Let's
wear
go.
that badge. Is it like octatonic? Because it sounds to me like, because I think that guitar bit we're talking about, I think that's like running like I think it's like the semitone thing off the root. It's like da, da, na, 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 na.
There's
Like
a
D
semi.
to D sharp.
There's that in the synth, in the sequence synth that
Yeah.
shows up in the second verse. That flat second is really a prominent feature.
Yeah.
I guess having the minor third and the major third, that's property of the octatonic scale, right? So
Yeah.
that would be, yeah, I don't know. I guess you may not have consciously been doing it, but
Yeah.
just the chromaticness of it results in an octatonic-ish.
Totally. Well, it's that classic one where it's like how much you leave open and how much is in there. Like like this harmonic question of how much do you fill the cup?
Actually,
Right.
Jack, the reason why it's not octatonic is because of. Oh wait, no, ignore me.
What were you going to say about the chord movement?
No.
Okay.
I was gonna say because it has a perfect fifth, and then I realized that the octatonic scale does have a perfect fifth in it.
Yeah, I think it can. It also cannot have a perfect fifth because
Yeah,
isn't there
there's
two
two. There's-
versions?
there-
the
there are-
half whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's even 3.
Also, I do remember there's one moment in this particular song that I felt like this song is kind of the joke I have about it. It's like, I'm allowed to get away with this.
Yeah.
And this was one of the first times someone pushed me even further down the rabbit hole. Was
Yeah.
in the bridge, there shows up a guitar that's hitting a semitone above the top note that I was imagining as like my pinning note for that section. And it just shows up as this like ding, ding, ding. And it's like this like brain rub moment where it's just like, and that was the suggestion of Alex, our producer. And I'm just like, I'm allowed to do what?
Yeah.
Like it's funny, like
who is allowed? Like, why am I being told to do this? This is crazy.
yeah, like it's funny when you're not that I am going to the club very much at all, but but it is funny like when there's a DJ playing and they can like some of these songs just have the most atonal weird stuff happening.
Oh my
and
God,
people
yeah.
freak out. People love it. They lose their minds
Totally.
when it's presented in the context of like it's like this noisy element of a song. But yeah, I don't know. And then if it was like a piano piece, they may be like, oh, that sounds awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I the context is the huge one where it's
yeah.
like In the Club by 50 Cent has the most like amazing bass behind it.
Found me
And-
in the club, bottle full of. What's the bass line?
Bum bum
Bum,
bum 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 dum dum.
and where that is against the
Oh.
chord, because that's the sequence that you hear, but it's actually doing inversions in different places, which make it go even darker. And it's like the coolest bass line in the world.
Yeah.
And everyone just goes like, their head just bops to it. Even the thought of it, that song makes your head bop. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I love that. Like the DJ thing is such an interesting one where it's like atonal rises that are just going up in pitch, just like in a almost
Oh, yeah.
microtonal way.
Yeah.
And everyone just goes, exciting, yay.
Yeah.
It's like,
That's one thing with some of the bends that Heather does on this record where it would be going from like one note to a higher one. There's like so many layers and it has this like clustery effect where
Yeah.
it's almost like in a horror movie score. You have like the microtonal cluster and then it like goes into the like unison.
yeah.
Like it sounds so cool like when it happens.
Yeah, it's like the THX theme.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
The all those what's it called? Deep note? I think it's called something like that.
Yeah.
the deep note, and it's just all these different parts that all coalesce into this.
Yeah.
I think it's just like, a pretty triad, but it sounds so pretty because you work for it. Because it's
Yeah.
just.
I think
Oh
that's
my god, we could do one right now. Should we
ready?
try?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so
Who wants to be on the top?
well, okay, we should decide on a note to end on. So
Uh,
like a la. Okay, so that's. Well,
I'll be in the middle.
Let's just do like a unison because it'll be
Yeah.
easier. So
Yeah.
la. So that'll be the note we end on. We all just pick
Oh,
random notes. We
okay.
end on
Yeah.
that. Okay,
Okay.
so ready? So do you want to go low or high?
I'll go low.
Okay, you go low. I'll go high.
Yeah.
Okay, ready? Now that's the note.
Yeah, like that.
on this podcast. I think I went too high.
Watch out, THX. We're coming for you next.
But there's this thing where it's like there's this huge stack of harmonies in this song, specifically in the chorus, that getting the tuning right and being very particular about that and making that very deliberate with using harmonic thirds and stuff, getting that to feel correct was like time intensive, like, and it was not an accident. And it's just that thing where it's like, I hope the song comes across as accessible to an audience because of that detail.
It feels like one time you messaged me when you were producing a band, and you were just like, oh, maybe it was even this song, and you were like, what's the cent value of
A minor third, I think, was the one. I was like, does it go up?
Yeah, and it felt so nice to be doing my civic duty as a microtonalist to potentially get some more microtones on the airwaves.
Well, there's tons of stuff I've worked on since where if it's guitar music specifically, I will be the thirds and harmonies on thirds. I will be paying attention to that.
You need to print out the table from like the Zen harmonic wiki. It's like got every single. It's like 300 intervals.
Yeah.
They'll come into your studio. There'll just be all these strange, like, sort
Yeah.
of geometric shapes on the wall.
And everyone will be like, what do those mean? And I'm like, I don't know, man.
It's like, this is like the dragon second or whatever. They got weird names.
Yeah. Oh, this is the dodecahedron of fifths. Everyone learns this. It's rudimentary.
And they're like, can I write a pop song now?
Yeah, like not until
No, you must study.
study the
First
ways.
you must study.
Should we move on to?
Yeah. So
Is there anything more you want to say about Wildfire?
I think that's a lot of it. I think it's just one of those ones where I'm like, I'm very proud of what I was allowed to get away with.
Yeah.
sorry, I'm sort of halting the progress of this, but I wanted to, because you said before, like, oh, it's like being surprised about getting away with it. Don't forget that you put like a song with a chorus in 9 on Triple J.
I know, I love that.
Yeah, so that's like,
It was like it was like so chromatic.
yeah,
And then it was like our fastest full add to Triple J we ever got. And I'm like,
Wow.
what?
I made a meme about that after watching Cry Club live, and I'll post that on the Instagram when we share this.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it's about understanding things on a deeper level, like everyone else.
So for those playing at home, this is a song from our first record called Robert Smith.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
Where chorus is in 9 and then it goes to a verse in 4 and then it comes back to the chorus in 9, and it does the Meshuggah thing where if you just put like a straight cymbal crash across everything, then an audience will just bop their head along.
Yeah.
So then no one notices it's in 9
Yeah,
until they start trying to clap along.
yeah, or count along.
Yeah.
So we talked about this on the phone. Brought up the fact that like you were like, oh, we can do this episode on this Friday, but I feel bad because you guys won't be able to write a song in time, if that's even something you guys want to do. And I want to say that individually, we did not get to write a song
Yeah.
for like in the style of Cry Club, but collectively.
Ooh!
Collectively.
I was like, I know something's coming.
Collectively, we wrote a song. So, bit of context: neither Fenn nor I have heard this song yet. What we've done is I wrote the first parts, and then Fenn wrote choruses and the bridge, and then there's a brief moment at the end where they're both together. But the only thing we decided on was that it was going to be 120 BPM,
Yeah.
and that Fenn's was in C, so I went to E flat because I wanted to get that sweet Phil Collins
Hell yeah.
Tarzan key change
Hell
between
yeah.
sections.
Yeah.
I feel like it fits the crack.
I have
Club
no
vibe.
idea. Like the coherence of this is
Oh,
gonna be.
this could be so ugly, but we're gonna hit play and we're gonna hope for the best.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So I thought I'd call up my brother and let him know that I'm doing alright. It should feel good to talk to one another. We are survivors out of spite. Out of spite. And every day I call your name, but despite my efforts, seems nothing's changed. I am done, so done. I am done with I'm done. I am done, so done. I am Whatever you do sounds good to me. People pleasing with a great big head full of worry. No matter what I do, my head's not clean. How do I get this dirty while I sleep? While I sleep. And every day I call your name, but despite my efforts, seems nothing's changed. I've been holding back for all this time, and I'm starting to think you don't know why. I've been holding back for all this time, and I'm starting to think you don't know why. I've been holding back for all this time, and I'm starting to think you don't know why. I'm done. I am done, so done. I am done I'm done. I am done, so done. I am
That was an interesting experiment.
We should do this for every guest.
That's great.
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah.
I was saying while the song was playing, the Jack's part sounded like Smashing Pumpkins to me.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like
Yeah, I was into it.
yeah,
And then-
1979 or something.
And then we turned into like Tame Impala.
Yeah,
We
true.
went
I
down
wasn't
that
even
road.
thinking about that. Yeah,
I was like, hell yeah.
And
I
but
tried
then
to copy that, like having the C melody and then the like D flat major 7 chord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then Was that meant to be the pre-chorus? That canon
That
thing?
was the bridge, and then it was supposed to go into your pre-chorus, and then into the chorus.
Okay.
But anyway, we'll do that in
Anyway.
post.
Yeah, we'll do it in post. But yeah,
That was great.
Yeah, the canon.
yeah, I love the canon. It's
Oh,
so
thank
cool.
you.
That was so Fenn.
was very me.
It was
yeah.
so Fenn.
But it was kind of inspired by like Jono's always trying to use put chromatic stuff, and I think you put a tone row in Robert Smith, right? Is that right? Or almost a tone row. Maybe it's something else. I don't know.
Oh, as in like 12 tone
12
row.
tone row.
So in that one I got all 12 tones in, but not in a row that was like committed to.
Right. Yeah.
Faker.
Yeah, I know,
The
right?
bass line of the chord progression for the canon is like a 12 tone row.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
And
really?
Because another thing I noticed is that you often use like a chord progression where you have like the chord and then the bass line is descending chromatically. Like that happens on a few different songs. It happens on Somehow You Still Get to Me really nicely, and I'm pretty sure it happens on Wildfire as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like which I love to use. Like I love to do that. So then I was doing that, and then I was like, well, hey, what if I can try to get everything? So it's like C major, then E minor over B, then E half diminished over B flat. It's getting real.
Oh, we love it. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
keep going.
Yeah.
People come here for
A7,
the
D
notes.
minor 7, G7, and then this bit's weird. A flat, F, D flat, G flat, and then it goes C major over E, and then C minor over E flat, just to get the E and the E flat in there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
That was the one sort of consideration we gave each other was what's the starting note of your
Yeah.
thing, and then how can we make them link together?
Yeah.
So
Kind
Yeah.
of almost worked.
yeah, I think it works pretty well because you end on a C minor for your chorus.
Yeah.
which is, as we all know, if you're a listener of the
Yeah,
podcast
the
and you're
relative.
1 hour and a half
Oh
in,
my gosh.
you know that is of course the relative.
Of E flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
hope
was
you
saying to
enjoyed it.
Jack and via message, I was like, mine sounds nothing like Cry Club. That's like what I was inspired by them.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's almost kind of cool for you guys to have done it like this, where it's like the inspiration being like pushed into somewhere else is something that's really kind of fun, because like that was so much of the process of putting together the record.
Yeah.
Was like so much of it is I can point to real specific songs where we were inspired by them, and we turned that into like our version of that song. And I like the idea that you guys did the same thing with this approach, where you're like, oh, let's do something in the style of Cry Club, and the style of Cry Club is respond to a source.
Yeah.
Like that's like, if there was one thing that was our style, it's responding to context.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important. Like, people feel like they need to have like a great idea out of nothing, but like nothing comes from
Yeah.
comes from nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Everything
even
comes from
subconsciously you'll
something.
be influenced by something. So like
Yeah.
you can consciously do it and it can end up sounding nothing like what you were trying to emulate. Like I was trying to emulate like Cry Club, it doesn't sound like it at all. Or like even your part like didn't sound like Cry Club at all.
Yeah,
It's just like
mine kind of
I don't know.
came out shoegaze. It's funny you say Smashing Pumpkins because I've never really listened to Smashing Pumpkins.
Honestly, the early stuff.
Yeah, I
good.
know the Guitar Hero 3 track,
Mm.
which was it went bano ban it down
Cherub Rock, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Guitar Hero 3 introduced me to so much.
Yeah, Siamese Dream. I actually came back around to the second record of theirs, because I was like, oh yeah, the later big rock songs. I love that. And I came back to Siamese Dream. I'm like, oh my god, they really love My Bloody Valentine. Whoa, Americans doing My Bloody Valentine in the 90s. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
So is that how
Yeah,
we going? Is that it?
Yeah,
I think that's it.
I think we were pretty exhaustive.
Yeah,
it's been a big day.
Yeah, it's been a big day. It's been a long episode, but hey, like we may as well take advantage of the fact that you're here. and,
Yeah.
it's been such a pleasure.
Yeah,
to
we
sit
couldn't have
and
had a
chat.
better person to do our first like guest, you know, on the show and like in person too. It was
Yeah,
great
we
to
were
do it.
talking about it, and then you messaged me, and I was like, the stars have aligned.
Yeah. We were literally like, oh, we should do an episode on the new Cry Club album, like when
Yeah.
it comes out or whatever.
Yeah, that would be cool.
So it's cool. Worked out.
Yeah, I'm so glad
Yeah.
that it all lined up.
Yes. So I guess this is our sign off. Is there anything? I mean, obviously you've got this album to promote. Is there
Yeah.
anything else? sort of you want to direct people to?
Ooh.
It's a big one. The album.
Yeah, I think it's.
Any
Do
shows?
you guys know when this is going to come out?
I feel like
Maybe in 3 weeks, but we can.
yeah. We
Whatever your schedule is, I don't want to break it.
yeah.
Today's date is the 2nd of June.
Yeah.
For tax purposes.
But yeah, I think honestly one of those ones where if I'm gonna plug anything, it's just the record, and we've made tons of music videos for it as well,
Yeah,
and which we gradually kind of like hopping out more and more. So we'll have like the playlist on YouTube of all of our music videos. If you want to
Nice.
give the deep dive of like we've done the compositional stuff, but there's this whole visual world that we kind of live
Yeah,
in
totally.
that's available on our YouTube channel.
Nice one.
Great. And I don't know if this is a bit different, but you know, if you're listening and you want to have an album produced by
Yeah.
a guy who's
Yeah.
very good at it and who is, I can attest to that on 3 counts. Yes, two of which are released and one of which is unreleased. Then yeah, hit up Jono.
I'm around.
He's around. He's got a website. It's swanky. I had
I
looked at it.
That's still up.
I think so.
I don't think it's up anymore.
Oh no. Okay.
I stopped paying that Squarespace bill
Okay.
a
Don't.
couple of years ago.
Slide into the DM.
Yeah, I gotta fix that.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't go to jonotooke.com because maybe someone with nefarious purposes has bought it. But,
Yeah.
I
but-
actually do need to fix it.
but hit up Jonathan Tooke What on the gram. He'll hook you up.
Yeah.
We've been Fenn and Jack and Jono.
Yep.
Thanks for listening.
Yep. Music rules.
rules.
Music rules.